Hey everyone, welcome back. 9 things they feel when you simply disappear. Stoicism. 40-minute video script. Not in a dramatic way, not with arguments or explanations. You just stop. Stop chasing. Stop explaining. Stop being available whenever they need you. The ancient Stoics understood something profound about human nature that most people today have forgotten. When you remove your presence, your energy, your attention, your constant availability, something shifts in the other person's mind. And today, I'm going to reveal the 9 psychological stages they experience when you simply disappear. But here's what's fascinating. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. This is about understanding the deep psychological principles that the Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught us about human attachment, value, and respect. If you've ever felt taken for granted, walked over, or constantly chasing someone who barely acknowledges your worth, this video will change everything. Stay with me for the next 40 minutes because by the end, you'll understand not just what happens when you disappear, but why the Stoics considered this one of the most powerful forms of self-respect. Before we dive into the 9 stages, let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote in his meditations, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." But there's a deeper layer to this wisdom. Picture this. You're always the one initiating conversations. You're always available when they need something. You bend over backwards to accommodate their schedule, their needs, their emotional states. And what do you get in return? Breadcrumbs, minimal effort, the assumption that you'll always be there. The Stoics understood that this dynamic isn't just unhealthy, it's unsustainable. Seneca wrote, "Every new thing excites the mind, but a mind always gets bored of things always available to it." So what happens when you flip the script? When you stop being predictably available? When you simply disappear from their life without drama, without explanation, without the emotional outbursts they might expect? The answer reveals fundamental truths about human psychology that haven't changed in 2,000 years. Now, before we continue, if you're finding value in this perspective, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We dive deep into Stoic wisdom that actually applies to modern life. And I promise you don't want to miss what's coming. Stage 1, confusion. Stage 1, confusion. Where did they go? The first thing they feel is genuine confusion. And this confusion reveals something profound about how they've been perceiving you. Let me paint you a picture. Sarah had been friends with Jake for 3 years. She was always the one texting first, always the one suggesting hangouts, always the one checking in when he was going through tough times. Jake would respond when convenient, show up when he felt like it, and generally treat her friendship as a given. One day, Sarah simply stopped. No dramatic conversation, no explanation. She just stopped initiating. Jake's first reaction? "That's weird, I haven't heard from Sarah in a week." Not concern. Not worry, just confusion at the disruption of a pattern he'd grown accustomed to. Epictetus taught us, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. But the inverse is also true. People often don't recognize wealth until it's removed from their easy access. During this confusion stage, something interesting happens in their brain. The pattern recognition system that had categorized you as always available suddenly hits an error message. They're not panicking yet. They're just puzzled. They might check your social media. Did you post something? Are you okay? But they're not worried enough to actually reach out directly. Because in their mind, this is probably temporary. You'll be back to the usual pattern soon. The confusion stage typically lasts 3 to 7 days, depending on how established the pattern was. And here's what's crucial. If you break during this stage, if you reach out first, you reset everything back to 0. The confusion disappears, and they learn that your disappearance was just a temporary glitch, not a permanent change. This is why the Stoics emphasized patience and discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not their comfort, not their confusion, your present commitment to valuing yourself." Stage 2, dismissal. Stage 2, dismissal. They're just being dramatic. After the initial confusion wears off, something predictable happens. They dismiss your absence as temporary drama. Let's continue with Sarah and Jake. By day 5, Jake's confusion has morphed into dismissal. Sarah's probably just going through something, he tells himself. She'll get over it and things will go back to normal. This dismissal serves a psychological purpose. It protects their ego from having to examine their own behavior. It's easier to label your disappearance as being dramatic than to consider that maybe, just maybe, they've been taking you for granted. Seneca wrote extensively about human tendency towards self-deception. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, he said. But there's a flip side. We also dismiss reality when it threatens our comfortable narratives about ourselves. During the dismissal stage, they're essentially betting that your self-respect has an expiration date. They're wagering that your need for their attention will eventually override your need for dignity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They're right about most people. Most people do crack during this stage. Most people do return to the old pattern because the discomfort of being dismissed feels worse than the discomfort of being undervalued. But if you're applying Stoic principles, you understand something they don't. This isn't about them at all. This is about you living according to your values, regardless of their response. Marcus Aurelius faced this constantly as an emperor. People would dismiss his philosophical pursuits as impractical idealism. But he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The dismissal stage is actually a gift. It shows you exactly how they really viewed the relationship. If someone's first response to your absence is to dismiss it rather than address it, you now have valuable information about where you stood in their priorities. This stage typically lasts another week to 10 days. They might make casual references to your absence. "Oh, Sarah's being weird lately." But they're not taking any action to understand or repair whatever might be wrong. If you're relating to this pattern in your own life, I want you to pause and really think about it. Have you been accepting dismissal as normal? Because what we're about to explore in the next stage is where things get really interesting. Stage 3, mild concern. Stage 3, mild concern, maybe something's actually wrong. Around the 2 to 3 week mark, dismissal starts to crack. The pattern disruption has lasted too long to be temporary drama. Now they're experiencing mild concern. Jake is now genuinely wondering if something happened to Sarah. But notice, he's wondering, not acting. He's concerned enough to think about it, but not concerned enough to actually reach out with vulnerability or genuine care. This is where you see the difference between curiosity and care. Curiosity asks, "I wonder what's going on." Care asks, "What can I do to help?" The Stoics distinguished between what they called preferred indifference and true goods. A preferred indifferent might be someone's attention or approval. It's nice to have, but it's not essential to your well-being. True goods are things like wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. During the mild concern stage, they're starting to realize they might have lost access to something they considered a preferred indifferent, but they're not yet ready to examine whether they deserve access to it. Here's what's happening in their mind. The scarcity principle is beginning to activate. Psychologists have known for decades that we value things more when they become scarce. But there's a crucial nuance here. This only works if the thing was valuable to begin with. If they never truly valued your presence, your absence won't create desire, it will create relief. But if they did value you, even subconsciously, your absence starts to highlight what they've lost. Sarah, meanwhile, is experiencing something profound. For the first time in 3 years, she's not managing Jake's emotions, not wondering if he's okay, not structuring her social energy around his availability. She's discovering parts of herself that had been dormant. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Sarah is discovering she wants less than she thought she did. And paradoxically, this makes her more valuable, not less. If you're in this situation, this stage is crucial. Their mild concern is not an invitation to return. It's information. It tells you that your absence is registering, but they're still not willing to take responsibility for the relationship dynamic that led to your departure. The mild concern stage can last anywhere from a few days to several weeks. What determines the length? How deeply ingrained the taking for granted pattern was, and how much they actually valued what they've lost. But mild concern is just the beginning. What happens next reveals the true nature of their attachment to you. Stage 4, active wondering. Stage 4, active wondering, I should probably check on them. This is where the shift becomes undeniable. Active wondering is different from mild concern because it includes the impulse to act, even if they don't follow through immediately. 3 weeks in, Jake finds himself thinking about Sarah multiple times a day. Not just passing thoughts, active wondering. I should text her. I wonder if she's mad at me. Maybe I should call. But here's the fascinating part. He still doesn't actually reach out. Why? Because reaching out would require admitting that the relationship was unbalanced. It would require vulnerability. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." But there's a parallel truth. The greatest teacher for someone who takes you for granted is also delay. Your continued absence forces them to sit with the reality of what they've lost. During active wondering, they're experiencing what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the comfortable story they told themselves. That you'd always be available, that the relationship was fine, that you were just being dramatic, no longer fits the evidence. Jake starts noticing Sarah-shaped holes in his routine. The coffee shop they used to go to, the friend group gatherings, where she used to be the one making sure everyone felt included. The way she used to remember small details about his life that he now realizes no one else bothers to remember. This is when they start to understand the labor you were providing. Emotional labor, social labor, the invisible work that keeps relationships and social groups functioning smoothly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." From their perspective, they're experiencing loss. From your perspective, you're experiencing change, growth, actually. The active wondering stage is where you start to reclaim your power. Not because you're manipulating them, but because you're demonstrating something they've forgotten, that your presence in their life is a choice, not an obligation. If someone is in the active wondering stage about you, you might notice indirect signs. They might ask mutual friends about you. They might like old photos or posts of yours on social media. They might show up to events they know you'll be at. But the Stoic response remains the same. Focus on what you can control. Their wondering is about them processing their own attachments and patterns. Your job is to continue building a life that doesn't require their validation. The active wondering stage typically lasts 1-2 weeks. And what comes next is where most people make their biggest mistakes. Both the person who disappeared and the person experiencing the absence. Stage 5, reaching out. Stage 5, reaching out. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. This is the moment of truth. After weeks of confusion, dismissal, concern, and wondering, they finally make contact. But here's what you need to understand. How they reach out tells you everything about whether they've actually learned anything. There are 2 types of reaching out. The ego-protecting reach out and the genuine reach out. The difference will determine everything that happens next. Jake finally texts Sarah, "Hey, stranger, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" Notice the framing. Haven't heard from you, as if communication was her responsibility. Everything okay? Was implying that her absence must be due to some problem she's having, not anything related to their relationship dynamic. This is an ego-protecting reach-out. It makes contact while avoiding responsibility. A genuine reach-out would sound different. "Hey, Sarah, I've been thinking about our friendship, and I realize I may have been taking you for granted. I'd love to talk if you're open to it. The difference? Vulnerability, ownership, recognition that the relationship dynamic might need addressing. Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. When someone reaches out to you after you've disappeared, their approach tells you whether they've learned anything from your absence. If they've learned something, their outreach will reflect growth. If they haven't, their outreach will be an attempt to return to the old dynamic without addressing why you left in the first place. Here's what's crucial to understand. Their reaching out is not necessarily about you. It might be about their discomfort with the disruption of a pattern they found convenient. It might be about their ego needing validation that they're not the kind of person people just walk away from. Or it might be genuine recognition of value they didn't appreciate before. Your job is to discern which one it is. If you receive an ego-protecting reach-out, the Stoic response is measured. You don't need to rush back into old patterns. You can respond warmly but maintain the new boundaries you've established. If you receive a genuine reach-out, you have options. You can choose to rebuild on healthier terms, or you can choose to appreciate the growth they've shown while still maintaining your new direction. Sarah receives Jake's text and recognizes it immediately as ego-protecting. She responds, "I'm good. Thanks for asking. Hope you're well too." Warm but boundaried. She doesn't explain her absence or rush to reassure him that everything is fine. This response communicates something powerful. I'm not angry. I'm not dramatic. I'm just different now. How they respond to your measured response determines what comes next. And what comes next reveals the depth of their attachment to you. Stage 6, frustration. Stage 6, frustration. Why are they being like this? When their reaching out doesn't immediately restore the old dynamic, frustration emerges. And this frustration is incredibly revealing. Jake expected his text to Sarah to fix things. He expected her to respond with enthusiasm, maybe even gratitude that he'd bothered to check in. Instead, he got polite but distant acknowledgement. His next text, "Did I do something wrong? You seem different." This is frustration masquerading as concern. It's not, "How can I do better?" It's, "Why aren't you behaving the way I expect you to?" The Stoics understood that frustration often reveals attachment to outcomes we can't control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Their frustration shows they had unconscious expectations about your behavior. They expected your return to eagerness, your gratitude for their attention, your willingness to pretend nothing happened. When those expectations aren't met, they experience what psychologists call expectation violation. The script they had in their head about how this interaction would go has been disrupted. This is actually a positive sign, not because you want them to suffer, but because disrupted expectations are the only way people learn new patterns. Frustration might show up as passive-aggressive comments. "I guess you're too busy for old friends now." Interrogation. "What's wrong with you lately?" Guilt-tripping. "I thought we were closer than this." Dismissal. "You're being ridiculous." Each of these responses tells you they still haven't grasped the core issue. They're focused on your behavior change, not on what caused it. Seneca advised, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." When someone is frustrated with your new boundaries, the temptation is to either get defensive or to immediately explain yourself. The Stoic approach is different. You remain calm, consistent, and you don't take responsibility for managing their frustration. Their frustration is information about their internal process, not a problem you need to solve. Sarah's response to Jake's frustrated text, "You didn't do anything specific. I'm just in a different place now." She doesn't elaborate. She doesn't explain. She doesn't take responsibility for managing his confusion. This response is powerful because it's true without being cruel, clear without being dramatic. The frustration stage reveals something profound about the nature of most relationships. Many people prefer predictable dysfunction over uncertain growth. They'd rather have you back in the old pattern, even if that pattern was unhealthy, than deal with the uncertainty of a new dynamic. This is why disappearing and maintaining your disappearance through their frustration is actually an act of love. You're refusing to enable patterns that don't serve either of you. But frustration is not the final stage. What happens next is where you discover if they're capable of genuine self-reflection. Stage 7, self-reflection. Stage 7, self-reflection. Maybe I need to look at myself. This is the stage that separates people capable of growth from people committed to stagnation. Not everyone reaches this stage, but when they do, it changes everything. 2 days after his frustrated text, Jake finds himself really thinking, not about Sarah's behavior, but about his own. For the first time, he's asking different questions. Instead of why is Sarah being weird, he's asking, what did our friendship actually look like from her perspective? Marcus Aurelius practiced this kind of self-reflection daily. He wrote how much trouble he avoids, who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but examines himself. Self-reflection after loss is one of the most valuable experiences a person can have. It's when they stop focusing on what they've lost and start examining what they contributed to the loss. True self-reflection is uncomfortable. It requires acknowledging that maybe they weren't as good a friend, partner, or colleague as they thought they were. It requires examining patterns they've been unconscious of. Jake starts remembering things differently. All those times Sarah initiated contact, all those times she was available when he needed support, but he was busy when she did. All those times she accommodated his schedule, his preferences, his needs. This is when the real transformation begins. Self-reflection leads to genuine empathy. For the first time, they're seeing the relationship from your perspective. They start to understand that your disappearance wasn't dramatic or unexplained. It was the natural consequence of an unsustainable dynamic. You might notice signs of genuine self-reflection. They stop asking what's wrong with you and start examining what they contributed. They acknowledge specific behaviors without being prompted. They don't rush to fix things immediately, but take time to process. Their communication becomes more thoughtful and less reactive. Jake realizes something that makes him uncomfortable. He had been treating Sarah like an emotional vending machine. Insert a problem, get support. Insert a need, get accommodation. But when was the last time he had asked how she was doing and really listened to the answer? This realization is painful but necessary. Epictetus taught that no one can hurt you without your permission. But the corollary is also true. No one can take you for granted without your participation. Here's what's crucial. Self-reflection doesn't automatically entitle them to your return. It's the beginning of growth, not the completion of it. Some people do genuine self-reflection and then expect immediate forgiveness and restoration of the old relationship. The Stoic understands that self-reflection is its own reward. Whether it leads to renewed relationship or simply to their personal growth, it has value. Your role during their self-reflection stage is to continue focusing on your own growth. Their internal process is not your responsibility to manage or accelerate. If they're genuinely reflecting, they'll do the work regardless of your response. But self-reflection, when it's genuine, often leads to the most complex stage of all, one that tests both their character and your wisdom. Stage 8, genuine appreciation. Stage 8, genuine appreciation. I never realized what I had. This is the most dangerous stage, not because it's harmful, but because it's so compelling. When someone reaches genuine appreciation for what they lost, every instinct tells you to rush back into the old relationship. But Stoic wisdom says, not so fast. 3 weeks after his self-reflection began, Jake sends Sarah a different kind of message. Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking about our friendship over the years. I realize I took you completely for granted. You were always the one reaching out, always the one making sure I was okay, always accommodating my schedule and my needs. I never reciprocated that energy, and I understand now why you stepped back. I don't expect anything from you, but I wanted you to know that I see it now and I'm sorry. Notice the difference. This isn't about him anymore. It's not, why are you doing this to me? It's, I understand why you needed to do this for you. Genuine appreciation has several markers. Specific acknowledgement of behaviors, not vague apologies. understanding of impact, not just intent, no immediate expectations or demands. Focus on your well-being, not their discomfort. Seneca wrote about the nature of true friendship. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. But he also understood that the greatest test of appreciation is what someone does with it. Genuine appreciation without changed behavior is just sophisticated emotional manipulation, whether conscious or unconscious. Here's the real test. Do they appreciate what they had enough to let you go, if that's what's best for you? Or do they appreciate what they had and now want to reclaim it? True appreciation sometimes means accepting that the relationship may have run its natural course. It means being grateful for what was without demanding what might be again. When faced with genuine appreciation, you have several Stoic options. 1. Acknowledge their growth while maintaining your boundaries. 2. Explore rebuilding on entirely new terms. 3. Express gratitude for their reflection, while choosing to continue your separate path. None of these is wrong. The key is choosing based on your values and genuine desire, not guilt, obligation, or the relief of being seen. Sarah reads Jake's message and feels something she hasn't felt in months. Genuine warmth toward him, but she also feels something else. Clarity about what she needs in friendships moving forward. Her response: thank you for this message, Jake. It means a lot to know that you understand. I've grown a lot during this time apart, and I'm not the same person who was always available for everyone else's needs. If we rebuild our friendship, it would need to be on different terms. This response does something powerful. It honors their growth while maintaining her own. It doesn't punish them for the past or rush toward the future. It exists fully in the present moment, which is where all Stoic practice lives. But genuine appreciation, when it's real, leads to the final stage, one that reveals the ultimate outcome of your disappearance. Stage 9. Transformed respect. Stage 9. Transformed respect. I see you differently now. This is the final stage, and it's where you discover the true gift of your disappearance. Not everyone reaches this stage, but when they do, it changes the fundamental nature of how they see you and how you see yourself. Transformed respect is different from appreciation. Appreciation is about valuing what you brought to their life. Transformed respect is about recognizing who you are as a person, someone with boundaries, standards, and the strength to enforce them. 6 weeks after Sarah's boundary-setting response, she and Jake meet for coffee. But this isn't the same dynamic they had before. Jake doesn't assume Sarah will accommodate his schedule. He asks when works for her. He doesn't monopolize the conversation with his problems. He asks about her life and actually listens. Most importantly, he doesn't take her presence for granted. He understands now that her friendship is a choice she makes, not an obligation she fulfills. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Respect yourself and others will respect you." Your disappearance taught both of you this lesson. You learned to respect yourself enough to remove yourself from an unbalanced dynamic. They learned to respect you as someone who values themselves. Transformed respect changes everything. They initiate contact as much as you do. They consider your needs, not just their own. They value your time and don't assume unlimited availability. They see you as a whole person, not just a function in their life. But here's what's crucial to understand. Not every story ends with reconciliation. Sometimes transformed respect means they understand why you left and respect your decision to stay away. Sometimes it means they change how they treat others, even if they don't get another chance with you. Seneca taught that every new thing excites the mind, but a mind always gets bored of things, always available to it. Your disappearance broke the pattern of being taken for granted. Whether you return or not, you've reclaimed your value. The most profound transformation happens in you. You discover that you don't need anyone's validation to have worth. You learn that your presence is a gift, not a given. You understand that healthy relationships require mutual effort and respect. Some people never reach this stage. They get stuck in earlier stages. Confusion, dismissal, frustration. That's information too. It tells you that they weren't capable of the growth that a healthy relationship with you would require. And that's okay. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, confine yourself to the present. Your job was never to force their growth. Your job was to honor your own worth. Conclusion and integration. So there you have it, the 9 stages. They experience when you simply disappear. Confusion, dismissal, mild concern, active wondering, reaching out, frustration, self-reflection, genuine appreciation, and transformed respect. But here's what I want you to understand. This isn't a manipulation tactic. This isn't about playing games or withholding yourself to get attention. This is about understanding a fundamental truth that the Stoics taught: you teach people how to treat you by what you accept. When you disappear, when you stop chasing, stop overgiving, stop being predictably available, you're not being cruel. You're being honest. You're showing them the true nature of the relationship dynamic that existed. Some people will rise to meet you at a healthier level. Others will reveal that they were never interested in a balanced relationship to begin with. Both outcomes give you valuable information. Remember, your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's recognition of it. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone else's inability to see it. As Epictetus taught, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. When you disappear, you often discover you need less than you thought you did. And paradoxically, this makes you more valuable, not less. If this video resonated with you, I want you to do 3 things. First, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We explore practical Stoic wisdom for modern life every week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Second, leave a comment below sharing which stage resonated most with your experience. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with similar relationship dynamics. Third, and most importantly, take one small action today to honor your own worth. Set one boundary. Value your own time. Choose yourself in one small way. The Stoics understood that the most radical thing you can do in a world that encourages you to be everything to everyone is to simply disappear when you're not valued. Not with drama, not with anger, but with the quiet dignity of someone who knows their worth. Your absence will teach them what your presence was worth. And if it doesn't, it will teach you something even more valuable: that you never needed their validation in the first place. Until next time, remember, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.